What's up, guys? 2-2 yesterday for a slight loss. Not the best day, obviously, and not the worst. Got to bounce back from that. I've been hot, so hopefully that continues. Really hot in baseball. Baseball was 2-0 yesterday. Jared Jones had another really good start. Saw some footage from that game where he was making some batters whiff so bad they were like falling on the ground. Jones, man, he's got some good stuff, and I think we're going to start maybe not getting as much value with him as people catch on to how good he really is. But we'll see what happens. That worked out, and the San Francisco Giants worked out as well. Dallas Stars, I mean, they were out shooting Vegas for the whole game. It wasn't just when they were behind. The save percentage on the side of Dallas, I think it must have been Ottinger in there. He's their goalie, I think. Not good. Really not good. And Vegas was the way more physical team in the game, too, which I don't know. I don't think I would say I'm surprised by that. I think they are the more physical team, but the sheer amount of hits, they had 55 hits in the game. Dallas is like 20 something. That is a discrepancy I did not really expect. And then I lost on the NBA total. I don't know what was going on with that, man. That was just dead right away, like the whole time. That game was a dead under in the Orlando-Cleveland game. I don't know what was up with that. I really expected a higher scoring game. And one thing I forgot to mention in that handicap is that in game one, both of those teams shot an unexpectedly low percentage as well. I believe, especially from 3-point range, especially on the part of Orlando. So I thought that would kind of regress a little bit, but both teams do play pretty decent defensively, which is why the total was like low in the first place. But still, I thought it was just too low, especially after the first game was such a low total. The first game, the total, the books hung was like way low compared to what those teams had done against each other, like during the season, whatever. Like I think those teams were playing games that were all in like the 220s or something. The books hung like a 206 or whatever in the first game. So that kind of tells you the books are telling you this is going to be a lower scoring game. Yeah, because that was the first game of the playoffs with rested defenses and whatever. In game two, I didn't think that was going to be the case as much. So I mean, I didn't expect it to get into the 220s, but I was expecting it to go over what I thought was a fairly low total, but that did not happen. Moving on to today, NHL. I find most of this card to be very uninteresting, man. You got big favorites going on here. Rangers, Florida, and Vancouver are all leading their series 1-0, I believe, and they're all home favorites. I don't know what to even think about any of those, really. Tampa, Florida had a close game. Like, both teams are going to show up again, most likely. The Rangers maybe looked a little bit better than they were. That game seemed like it was a little bit closer than the final score wound up being, but I don't think there's going to be value on the Rangers either way, but I don't really want to come in and make a play on Washington either. And then Nashville, I don't know how they're going to respond because they had a 2-1 lead in the third period of game one there and then wound up losing. That might put them in a bad mental state. I'm not really sure. But I am going to go back to the well and play the Colorado Avs again in hockey. They've flipped favorites, man. The books are again telling you Colorado is the better team here. Colorado has flipped from a 102 dog to a -110 favorite. I think you can actually get them still at an underdog price or very, very small favorite price. Actually, it looks like maybe -110 is the best you can do. But I think something's got to give, man. I'm just going to go back to the well here. I don't think this can keep happening. Winnipeg's got 64% of the tickets, only 55% of the cash. So they're a public home underdog, which that's like a red flag in the betting market there, which basically tells you that the other side is where the books are kind of taking the stand there. Like the books are seeing that money coming in. And the line, it looks like some of the stronger money has come in on the Colorado side because the line has actually flipped them to the favorite and moved in the other direction. The books are still telling you Colorado is actually the better team here, even though Winnipeg's won 4 straight games against them now. And one of the things I had mentioned is that I thought that some of those were a little bit misleading, where Colorado actually had the better stats in like 2 out of the 3. And then I think in game one was just a bizarre game where Colorado doubled Winnipeg's number of shots. They out-hit them 55-46. Face-off percentage, Colorado lost, but it was fairly close to even. That was just a crazy game, dude. Colorado was winning 3-2, I think, going into the second period. Then they were down, or towards the end of the first period. Then they were down 6-3. They scored again, and they were able to only lose 7-6. Although the final goal that they scored was in the final minute, but that's not a type of game that Winnipeg likes to play, man. Again, I think Winnipeg's a little bit out of their element, and Hellebuyck in net there, he obviously did not have a very good game. And Winnipeg, for them to sustain winning games like this, I think that they have to do better than that defensively and from the goaltending perspective. So that game played at Colorado's pace. Colorado seems to have been playing some of these games more in their style than Winnipeg's style. They just haven't been doing it. But I think something has to give at some point, man. So I'm going to take Colorado minus the 110 there. I don't know if there's that much to say about that otherwise. I just think these other results have been a little bit misleading based on the stats. Colorado massively outshot Winnipeg in game one. I don't think that it was just because Colorado was losing the game. The game was close up until Winnipeg started patting the lead in the third period. So Colorado was definitely outshooting them in the game, outplaying them in various aspects of the game. Now, this is a zigzag spot. Winnipeg had that big high of winning that first game. I think you could zigzag it. The line is about the same as it was in the first game. So it's not necessarily a zigzag because the line hasn't really given you extra value on Colorado, I don't think, but it's basically about where it was in game one. So Colorado is going to be the team that has more adjustments to make. So that's where I'm going. Over in the NBA, we have some more close games, I guess, more competitive matchups potentially. Suns T-Wolves, I'm jumping in on this one, and I'm going against some of the market indicators here. I'm going to zigzag this one and take the Phoenix Suns. T-Wolves are down from 4 to 3 with juice. It looks like, I don't know, there might be 3.5s out there still. I'm not really sure. Looks like mostly just 3s out there, maybe some with reduced juice, plus 3s on the Suns. The market is, according to pregame, the Suns do have 70% of the tickets, though, and the T-Wolves have 54% of the cash. So the public liking the Suns, they're public. I mean, they have some of the bigger names with KD and Booker and stuff, but I think something's got to give here. This is the spot where I think the zigzag is applicable because I was on the T-Wolves in game one. T-Wolves were only, a 1-point favorite in game one or something like that, and they blew out the Suns in game one, and now all of a sudden they're a 3.5-point favorite. So I think that's an over-adjustment to recency to what we saw in game one. I think the Suns are still the better team, and this line is basically telling you that they're even, or maybe the T-Wolves are the slightly better team. But the books prior to game one, they lined the Suns as a favorite on the series price, and the Suns were taking money, pushing them to an even bigger favorite. So the bettors, some of the professional bettors had to have been coming in and telling you, we actually think the Suns are the better team here. For them to be a favorite in a series where they're the road team, and I still think that that's the case. So this line seems a little bit out of whack from that. I think it was probably too short in game one, and I like the situation there. But I think probably a fair line would be T-Wolves about 2, and now we're getting extra points here, 3.5, because of the blowout in game one. One of the things I forgot to mention in that game one handicap, because I did mention the Suns have really had the T-Wolves number, man. They swept the season series against them 3-0. I believe if you go back to 2021, the Suns have won 14 of the last 17 or 14 of the last 18 games against the T-Wolves. They've dominated them. That's including losing game one of this playoff series. Suns have really had the T-Wolves number, and I don't see that will just completely turn it around all of a sudden, even though I did mention in the game one handicap, the T-Wolves have improved. They were a worse team for a lot of that stretch. That is obvious. They have certainly improved. And then I think at least two of the 3 games this year, maybe you could say, are misleading a little bit because I believe the T-Wolves were without Towns in one of them. And then the final game of the regular season, the Suns really had the extra motivation because they were trying to avoid the play-in. The T-Wolves are still trying to get the 1 seed, but I think avoiding the play-in was the bigger motivating factor there. But the Suns still, in a game where you think both teams should at least have some motivation, the Suns did blast them. And now I think this is where the zigzag is going to come in. The Suns have had the T-Wolves number for the most part in the recent years. They're getting extra points here, and they're the team that has all the adjustments to make, and I think they have the experience edge here. I mean, the Suns, they have experienced players, man. As I mentioned, with KD especially, they made it a run in the playoffs last year, further than the T-Wolves did. So I think the experience edge is on the side of the Suns here. So I like them to be able to zigzag in this quick turnaround time. I think the quick turnaround time also favors the team that has more experience, and I think that's going to be the Suns. The market indicators do worry me on this one, though. The market indicators are fairly strong on the T-Wolves, I would say, to the point where it looks like a pros versus Joes type of situation. I'm going to be on the Joes, the square side, if I take the Suns here, but that is what I'm doing here. Looks like a similar type of market in Pacers Bucks. Bucks sitting at a 1-point favorite. They were a 1.5-point underdog, I believe, when I took them in game one, although there's not much of a difference. Either team favored by one. It's basically pick the winner. Who cares? Pacers, 58% of the tickets in this one, so they're public still. Bucks, 73% of the cash. So it is strange to me, though, that the public doesn't seem to be overreacting that much to the game one recency, especially in this series with Pacers Bucks. You think that the public would have seen that first game and be like, oh, shit, we're not going to want to play the Pacers again here. But that doesn't seem to be the case. I don't know. This one, I don't want to zigzag in this one because the line, I don't think, has moved as much as it should have, or as much as I would like to see it if I wanted to zigzag. I mean, the line hasn't really overreacted that much to the game one result, I don't think. The Bucks are still going to be without Giannis, but of course they showed they can play without him. They basically played without Lillard in the entire second half. Even though they were winning by 20-something going into the second half, they still won the game. Even though the Pacers outscored them in the second half, Lillard scoring 0 in the second half. Crazy results in that game. Lillard, 35 points in the first half and 0 in the second half. But the Bucks, they show that they have depth, man, and they can play. They do have the better coach, so I would hesitate to actually take the Pacers in this one. And the market looks like it's against it, so I don't even know if I lean in one particular way or the other here, man. The market is indicating on the Bucks. The zigzag would tell you that the Pacers would be the side to look at here. I don't know what to think about it. I don't like either side, really. I don't even think, I don't want to even say that I have a lean in this one. This one is so tough for me to gauge, really. It is possible that the Bucks falter in another game without Giannis, but that last game wasn't their first game without Giannis. They played multiple games in a row without him now, and they have more experience, obviously. They are the much more battle-tested, like, playoff team as far as the guys that they have. These guys have been here and done this before, and Doc Rivers, of course, also has. Although Rick Carlisle, not a bad coach there for the Pacers, so we will see what happens there. This total is also plummeted from 227 to 221.5. It looks like there is money coming in on the under in this one. And game one, I believe, I think actually wound up going over slightly. If I remember, actually, I can't remember. Maybe it didn't. But the total does seem quite high, but it's because the Pacers just score so much. But the Bucks were able to really keep the Pacers offense in check in game one. So that's another thing. It seems like the Pacers maybe don't match up that well against them, even though the Pacers were, I believe, 3-1 against the Bucks during the regular season or something. One of those games was the in-season tournament, though, where I think these better teams like the Bucks and the Celtics who lost to the Pacers, they didn't really have as much motivation in that in-season tournament. I went against the Celtics and played the Pacers in that one. So I don't know. But of course, the Pacers, I just don't like their defense either. So I would not really want to get involved with the Pacers here. They have one of the worst defenses in the NBA, man. They have one of the best offenses, but in a playoff series, of course, that doesn't sustain you. Although when we're talking about one single game, of course, their offense could have an explosion in any particular game. But I don't want to get involved in it. And then Mavs, Clippers. Mavs are up from 2-2 with juice. Again, a road favorite here. 78% of the tickets, only 63% of the cash. So again, they're a public road favorite. So the market indicators would be on the Clippers side here, but the zigzag would tell you that the Mavs would be the side. The Mavs were a 3-point favorite in game one, and you're getting a little bit extra value on the Mavs, I guess, from that at least. They're only a 2-point favorite this time, which I believe also is going to indicate that Kawhi Leonard is still not playing for the Clippers. He didn't play in game one, and the Mavericks still didn't play well, and they only scored 8 points in the second quarter. I don't know what was up with any of that. I'm kind of shocked by that result, to be honest. My slight lean would be again to the Dallas side here, just because I think they're going to have the adjustments to make here. And the Clippers, I don't think that they're a very consistent team. I don't trust them. I don't trust their ability to defend without Kawhi Leonard in there. So I don't know what's going to happen in that one. We will see. Doncic, I think, is fine. Doncic, however you pronounce his name. He played in game one. I think he's fine. He'll play again in this one. but we'll see. Going over to baseball, I have two plays. The one game I was close to playing was going to be to play the Yankees. I do think the Yankees are in a good bounce back spot here, and they have a huge pitching mismatch, but the line looks like it's going against them. They're down from minus 220 to minus 204 as a huge home favorite, and they are public. It looks like they have 96% of the tickets, 100% of the cash. That can't possibly be accurate, but the line does look like it's moving against the very public Yankees. I don't really want to get involved in playing them as a huge favorite like this. Like, you could play a run line on this and probably lay maybe even 2 runs or something to try to get a good price on this. I don't really want to play them to win by margin, although I kind of think they will, because they have a huge pitching mismatch here with Marcus Stroman pitching. He is the way better pitcher over Paul Blackburn, and I think the season stats are actually misleading on Blackburn because his ERA looks really good so far this year, but he's been way performing over his head. He's faced a couple of teams that I don't think are very good hitting teams, like Washington, I think. He has not been he is not good in general, man. His stats against the Yankees hitters are terrible. They hit like over 300 against him lifetime. So I expect Oakland to come crashing back down. And the Yankees, I think, are going to be in an angry mood because they got shut out by Oakland yesterday. And Aaron Boone got ejected from the game, I believe, in the first inning, the Yankees manager, because the umpire thought that he yelled something at him, but it was actually somebody in the stands at Yankee Stadium right near where the dugout was, and the umpire still threw him out for something that a fan yelled. It looks like, I mean, I'm no fan of Aaron Boone, man. I mean, I'm a Red Sox fan, so you know how that goes. The 2003 ALCS against Tim Wakefield or whatever. We don't want to bring that up, although I just did, but Yankees, yeah, I mean, they were coming off a big AL East series, I think, coming into that game against Oakland, and they just didn't really show up in the Oakland game, but also JP Sears pitched for Oakland yesterday, and he's been pitching out of his mind this year, and I think he's going to come crashing back down to earth, but he had a lot of reason to be motivated in yesterday's start against the Yankees because the Yankees got rid of them, so he was playing against a team that got rid of him. I think he was motivated and wanted to show something. He had a really good performance yesterday against the Yankees. I think the Yankees are in a much better spot here to bounce back here. I just don't think there's that much value in playing them as a massive favorite here, but that is the way I would look to play the Yankees in some fashion in this game potentially, if you're going to play this game. So something involving the Yankees was close to making my card here. I think pitching mismatch and the situation calls for the Yankees here. The games that I'm actually going to be on, one is going to be on, what am I even on here? I'm going to be on this interleague game between Houston and the Cubs. I'm going to take the Cubs. You can get them as an underdog right now at home. Looks like plus 102 you can get right now, or maybe even money, something like that. It looks like it is moving. I don't see the percentages on this, but it does look like the line is moving to the point where Chicago might wind up going off the favorite here. Neither of these teams played yesterday, so I'm just going to go full game here. I don't think that we have any bullpen situation to really consider in this one. Chicago is staying at home, and they did just lose to the Miami Marlins. They split a series with them, so I think, if anything, they could be in a bounce-back spot. They did play a doubleheader, I believe, in that last day, but they had the day off yesterday, so I think that's fine as well. Both teams are going to be a little bit rested coming into this one, but Chicago hasn't had to travel. Both teams coming off kind of ugly losses. Houston's coming off an ugly back-to-back losses to the Nationals. They have not been playing good baseball, man. Even though I do think they're going to turn it around because they're really not this bad. But they struggled against, I believe it was against Mitchell Parker, who was a rookie in his second start ever, who, of course, Houston has never seen before. So they struggled with him. But speaking of pitchers they've never seen before, I don't think they've ever seen Jordan Wicks before either. He's a 24-year-old. He's the starter here for the Cubs today. Looking at his career against Houston, Victor Caratini is the only hitter on the Astros who's ever faced him before, and he's 0 for 1 off of him. So effectively, Houston has never faced Wicks before. Wicks has a 5.29 ERA on the season and 1.76 whip. So those numbers are bad, but it's possible they could be a little bit misleading. He has allowed 21 hits in 17 innings and 9 walks, so all of that is bad, but his strikeout rate is quite high at 24. So he's putting too many men on base. In the month of April, he's been a little bit, one of those starts, like he walked 3 guys in his first start against Texas, so that wasn't very good. And then he actually didn't do too badly against the Dodgers, but he hasn't been going deep into games, so that does concern me a little bit. So we're going to have to likely rely on the Cubs bullpen here, but I think I'm okay with that. I think they are rested enough here. Wicks does have an 18-6 strikeout walk ratio in the month of April, and in 2 of those starts, he had a 7-1 strikeout walk ratio against the Dodgers and 5-1 against Arizona. But it looks like in every other start, he walks too many, and that would be coming up in this start. But still, I like the fact that these hitters have not seen him before, so I think he does have a little bit of an edge there, and that's the edge I'm going to jump in on, especially when you're giving me the Cubs as the home underdog. And I think you're giving me the Cubs with the better starting pitcher here, too. So the fact that he's been pitching a little bit better in April, I like that. I think he's kind of trending in the right direction. His start against Arizona, finally a game where his team won, although he didn't get the win because he didn't even go 5 innings, but a 5-1 strikeout walk ratio in that one. Only allowed 2 earned runs. He hasn't allowed more than 4 earned runs in any game, and that was the one where he walked 4 against Seattle. So he's been putting too many men on base, but he's kind of been keeping the runs down a bit. But on the other side, Houston, I think Houston's got the worst pitcher here, man. I think Wicks also has a much higher ceiling. Houston has J.P. France, who's like 5 years older than Wicks. His stats are even worse. He has a 7.08 ERA this year, 1.67 whip. I just don't think there's anything to like about France's stats, man. He was new to the majors last year as a 28-year-old. He entered the majors, and he didn't have good stats over his entire career, which is last year, 23 starts, 1 relief appearance, and 4 starts this year. 4.25 ERA in his career, 1.4 whip. That's way too high. 156 and 2/3 innings pitched with only 117 strikeouts, a low strikeout rate. Doesn't really come in and mow hitters down. 55 walks is also pretty bad. He's putting too many men on base. 2.1 strikeout walk ratio. And then this year, just doesn't look very good to me. 20 and 1/3 innings pitched. He's allowed 26 hits, 16 earned runs, 3 home runs, 8 walks. That's too many walks, and 16 strikeouts. Not a great strikeout walk ratio. And he's allowed more than 2 earned runs in every one of his starts, except for the one against the Braves, which was somehow his best start. In his most recent start, he only allowed 2 runs against the Braves and had a 4-1 strikeout walk ratio, and they still lost in extra innings. Houston is 0-4 in his starts this season, even though a couple of his starts have been good and a couple of them were pretty bad, although he has faced all good offenses so far. So, yeah, that is maybe skewing his results a little bit, facing the Braves, the Yankees, and Texas twice. There's been like no let up there, but I still just don't think he's a very good pitcher at all. And up against the Chicago Cubs, the Cubs hitters have seen him before, although it's a small sample size, but more they've seen him more than Houston has seen Wicks. Houston has basically never faced Wicks. Almost all their hitters never have. The Cubs, I don't know if it's most of their lineup, I guess, has seen France before at least one time. They're 6 for 16 off him lifetime with 3 doubles, a triple, a home run. He has 4 strikeouts and 2 walks against them. It's a 375 batting average and a 1,319 OPS. So these Cubs hitters are able to hit France around a bit, although it's in very limited playing time. It's a limited sample size, but I would prefer to take Wicks here. And you're giving me, like I said, him and the Cubs as a home underdog here. I like that better, and they're not traveling. So give me the Cubs in that one, plus the money there. And then the other game I'll be on is going to be another game where I think we have an advantage in the pitching matchup, and that is going to be on the Seattle Mariners facing Texas. This game, Seattle's actually a road favorite here, although the market looks like it's indicating against it, and I don't quite understand why. I think this pitching matchup favors Seattle. They're down from -110 to -109. I mean, the books put Seattle out there as a favorite, a road favorite, so the books are telling you that Seattle either is the better team or has the better of this pitching matchup here, even though everybody knows Texas are the returning champs. Seattle has a worse record than Texas does. This is going to be the first time these teams face off this year, I believe. So I think Seattle might have a little bit of extra motivation here as well, because they're only a half game behind Texas in the standings. And Seattle is, and Texas is, of course, the returning champ. So Seattle might have a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder here. Texas is also in a bad scheduling spot because they're returning home from a 3-series road trip, a fairly long road trip that took them to Houston, which of course isn't very far, but then Detroit and then Atlanta. So they haven't been home for a while. And that was a 4-game series at Detroit. So they're returning home from a long road trip, which, as I always say, is a bad, distracted spot. I don't think it's going to be a good spot for the Texas Rangers here. you tend to have those return home distractions coming into play. You have to deal with like returning to family life and whatever, even though Texas does have a day off here. Both of these teams have one day off, I believe, but even so, I don't think that alleviates all of the return home distractions, having one day to try to get those things out of the way. I think you may be distracted a little bit when that is the case, whereas Seattle, they're coming into Texas. Yeah, they are coming out of elevation, but they won the series against the Rockies. I believe they did play a doubleheader in the final day of that series, but they've had a day off as well. They're traveling out of elevation, so maybe that's a little bit of difficulty there, but I don't think that's too bad. Coming into Texas, starting the Texas series against the returning champs, being a half game behind them, I think it is a focus spot for Seattle. I do think they'll be focused here, and Seattle has Logan Gilbert pitching. Good stats on the year for Logan Gilbert so far, man. 2.33 ERA, 0.78 whip. He has been quite excellent this year with a 29-4 strikeout walk ratio, and he's allowed 4 home runs. So that number, if that number was lower, his numbers would be even better. He's only allowed 7 earned runs despite allowing 4 home runs. 29 strikeouts in 27 innings pitched, so more than 1 strikeout an inning. Very good. In 3 of his 4 starts, he's only allowed 1 earned run in each of them, including against Boston and Toronto. Toronto, although their offense has kind of been struggling, they have some really good hitters on that team. Boston's offense, not bad. His one kind of bad start was against Milwaukee, but even in that one, he had a 7-1 strikeout walk ratio. Gilbert has not walked more than 1. He's walked exactly 1 in every one of his starts, and he has at least 6 strikeouts in every one of his starts. So he's been consistent. He's been consistently good. In that Milwaukee game, he allowed 4 earned runs and gave up 3 of the 4 home runs he's allowed in that one. Other than that, he's allowed 1 earned run in each of his other starts. The one in Toronto being on a solo home run. He's been good, and he's been going pretty deep into games, too, getting into at least the 6th inning in every one of his games, at least the 7th in all but one of them, and getting at least 7 in 2 of them. So he's been pitching pretty well, man. And his career stats aren't much different, really. His career stats, 3.68 ERA, 1.12 whip. That's quite good. 520 strikeouts and 522 and a third. Only 117 walks. Good numbers, man. 4.4 strikeout walk ratio. Pretty good strikeout rate. And he's been pretty consistent over his whole career so far. So I like that. So Gilbert, I think he's the way better pitcher in this matchup, man. And of course, this is a divisional matchup, so both these pitchers have been seen a lot before by the opposing hitters. Gilbert, huge sample size. He's been pretty good against Texas's pretty potent lineup. Texas is 27 for 115 off him lifetime with, 8 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs. Only 5 RBIs, though. 235 opponent batting average, 25-7 strikeout walk ratio. The walk's a little bit high, but 235 opponent batting average and only a 679 OPS. That's not bad. So he's kept these Texas hitters in check, man. Whereas on the other side of this matchup, we have Dane Dunning pitching for Texas. He's the older pitcher. He's almost 30, and I think he's the worst pitcher. He doesn't go quite as deep. He's been pitching okay in some ways this year, but he's allowed 3 earned runs in all of his starts except 1. He's faced, Tampa, whose offense isn't really doing that well. Houston, who does have a potent offense, twice, but they've been struggling. He allowed 3 runs in every one of those games, 3 earned runs, and then he had his best start earned run-wise in his last game against Detroit, only allowing 1 earned run, and it was a home run. Detroit, not a very good offense, but he walked 4 guys in that game. He's walked at least 2 in every one of his starts, at least 3 in 3 out of the 4. His strikeout walk ratio is actually really bad, 22-13. He's walking a ton of batters, man. You can't keep getting away with that. So he has a 3.91 ERA on the season. 1.22 whip actually isn't that bad, but I still think the 3.91 ERA is misleading. When you walk 13 guys, man, something is wrong. He's kept the hits down. He's allowed 15 in 23 innings, 15 hits in 23 innings pitched. So that's why he has not allowed more runs than he has. But that walk number is unbelievably high and doesn't look very good. His career stats, significantly worse than Gilbert's. I don't think he's that good. 4.15 ERA, 1.34 whip. So his career whip is higher than what he's posted this season. Last year, his stats were a bit better, but still not excellent, I wouldn't say. His strikeout rate wasn't that good. His strikeout walk ratio is bad on his entire career. Strikeout rate not great in his career either. 448 in 502 thirds innings pitched, 448 strikeouts, 186 walks. That's pretty high. 2.4 strikeout walk ratio. Not very good, man. So Gilbert is the younger and better of these pitchers, and I think he's quite consistently better. He's consistently good. He's been better this season, too, than Dunning has. And then looking at Dunning against Seattle, of course, both of these lineups have seen these opposing hitters a lot. His stats against Seattle aren't really any better. Maybe they're even worse than his stats otherwise. Seattle's hitters are 26 for 92 off of him lifetime, 4 home runs, 3 doubles, 23-10 strikeout walk ratio. So that's worse than Gilbert's as well. That's a lot of walks, man. 10 walks, 9 RBIs. It's a 283 opponent batting average from Seattle's hitters, 283 off of them lifetime, and a 799 OPS, which isn't like sky high, but it's not great. So I think Gilbert has the edge here, and the scheduling edge goes to Seattle as well. So Texas is in a return home spot and has the lesser of the 2 starters going today. So that's a spot that I like to go on, even though it does look like the market is for some reason against it. The books hung that number out there telling you that Seattle is actually the better team in this matchup, at least, and in this scheduling spot. And I agree with it. I don't think that it's like a lack of value on Seattle or anything like that. I think the books are just kind of telling you something. It's still basically you're just picking the winner with a line like this. So those plays for today, one more time. Let's get back on track after yesterday, man. We got in NBA, the Phoenix Suns +3. In hockey, Colorado Avs again. Don't do me wrong again, man. Come on, -110. And in baseball, Chicago Cubs +102. And Seattle Mariners -106. Let's get it done. Peace.